Yep, absolutely top of my list for today's stream. Hello, everybody. Okay, let's get started, shall we? I'm rearing to go and jump into it. Let me just pop out the chat. Awesome. So, hello, everyone. Let's have a little bit of cheese and a little bit of coffee and hang out and talk about all things D&D. Refilling the beverage and moving to the laptop. So, top of my list is I've been waiting for this for a while. Actually, I've been following his YouTube channel, and Mr. Welch has put out he's wanting to put out a massive, like over 250 page player's handbook, complete guide to the Mystara setting, updated for 5th edition D&D. Now, the Mystara setting is any of you who started like me back in the 80s with the D&D Red Box set and the D&D Basic line. So what we're playing right now with 5th edition and 4th edition and 3.5 and 3 and second and AD&D 2nd edition is all advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And for a long time, Basic ran from the early 80s all the way through to almost like the 2000s, I think it was. And D&D Basic includes the complete rules cyclopedia and various other bits and pieces. And it's really the longest running edition of Dungeons & Dragons and one of the most complete editions of Dungeons & Dragons that Wizards of the Coast and TSR ever produced. So, it was kind of the baby of a couple of the people who worked at TSR who wanted a more accessible game, and just streamlined it down. So kind of, in a way, it was like the 5th edition before 5th edition. And Mystara was the official world setting of D&D Basic. Most people, kind of like me, I think, just sort of homebrewed it and didn't really pay attention to the fact that there was a world setting in the background. But there's all of these resources that came out really quickly over a few years that really fleshed out the Mystara setting. And the Mystara setting is unique in that the idea that player characters can go from level 1 all the way up to being demigods and gods, powers of their world, is core to the concept of Mystara. So there aren't godly pantheons, there are a large number of immortals, which essentially, if any other power from any other dimension or setting of Dungeons & Dragons tried messing with Mystara, they would contend with a small army of extremely powerful immortals, which came after them and drove them off. So, yeah, there's that idea. The world setting itself includes things like the Decapus and the Red Steel setting and all this sort of stuff, and it's been, chunks of it have been taken out and sort of merged into other settings as well, or concepts and themes of it. But it's like it's got a slapstick sort of tongue-in-cheek occasionally, but also high adventure, and you can run all sorts of different campaigns because every sort of culture that you can imagine that would exist in a world has its place in Mystara, and some of the places are harsh and brutal, others are peaceful and idyllic. It's got magocracies with floating cities and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so Mr. Welch has put together this game book, and it looks pretty good from what I've seen so far. I'm going to be helping him out, trying to promote it and basically get the word out there that there is a need for Wizards of the Coast to support their longest running ever and most complete setting. Next to Forgotten Realms, I think it's probably the most complete setting mapped out for everybody. The maps in the book are absolutely gorgeous. And he's gone through and described all the different regions and things like that. So I'm going to be reviewing the PDF copy that he sent me. Unfortunately, it's not available on Drive-Thru RPG because it's still very much copyright material of Wizards of the Coast or TSR. Well, Wizards of the Coast, I suppose. And so he needs that groundswell movement of people clamoring that we need something like this to be produced to support the oldest running line, because they're bringing back things like Eberron and things like that, but really Mystara is much more a complete setting in many ways than say Ravenloft or Eberron, or Dragonlance, that sort of thing. So I think there'll definitely be a lot of support for it, and it's a very interesting setting, and he's done a fantastic job from what I've seen so far of the PDF, but I'll let you know as I go through. Yeah, shut up and take my money. Yeah, exactly. So clamour to Wizards of the Coast. Let them know. Let them know in your comments. Let them know in the message boards. Convert monsters from the old Mystara, old D&D basic box sets and things. The Companion and Masters and the Immortal sets. On D&D Beyond, convert these things and talk about the Mystara setting and let them know that people are talking about it and there is a desire for it, and we will see possibly one of the greatest settings for Dungeons & Dragons ever produced. Get some life breathed back into it and put it back on the centre stage where it belongs, because that's right in the core of my nostalgia. That's where I started D&D. That's where all of my favourite artwork of dwarves and hobbits and all that sort of stuff comes from. When I think of a wizard, I think of the wizard that I first saw, or the fighter. I think of that. Absolutely. My first encounter was the solo adventure where I bumped into a rust monster. that was my first encounter of my foray into D&D. All right, well and truly time for some cheese. My Cato Bleppers death cheese. Oops, I'm getting cheese on my keyboard. That's not good. Cheers. Hey, William. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support on the Astral Dreadnought video. I had a fantastic response from that video. It was really, off the charts. Just how immediate and interesting and wonderful the comments were from everybody. I knew it was going to have a bit of reach because Critical Role fans obviously are searching for definitions of what an Astral Dreadnought is. So I've noticed that that's had an impact on the channel because there's a lot of people leaving comments on older videos, so they're going through the playlist, which is always great to see. Taking a trip back in time. Man, that cheese is good. Mystara, more than anything, I think, is really in the idea of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, because of the Immortals and the lack of super powerful gods and things like that in Mystara. The idea of bounded accuracy and gameplay all the way through to level 30 is possible, and the rule system for how you progress to an immortal state and how you run very high level games is all included in Mystara, whereas in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, not so much, and in 4th edition, definitely not. So I think there definitely is a synergy between Mystara and 5th edition. Will there be Marmite and toast? I do actually have some Marmite. I can have some Marmite and toast next stream if you want. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's understandable that Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons would team up because they're run by the same company, and obviously they want to maximise their audience, and the link between those two brands is not that far off. I mean, you're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, a multi-dimensional setting, rule set that can certainly incorporate Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. There's a few problems in that. Some parts of Magic the Gathering are just going to never sync up with Dungeons and Dragons as a universe, but you can see how it can be combined in a way. In many ways, I think it would have actually been easier if they'd included psionics in 5th edition D&D as a separate power system, because then planeswalking could be a kind of psionic teleportation. Talking of which, I was playing some Traveller last night. Traveller is the RPG. This is an old school science fiction role-playing game that's been around almost as long as Dungeons and Dragons has. And this is the latest version from Mongoose Publishing, which they do a pretty good job. Although I wish they'd included the Droin and a couple of the other more other alien races in the core rulebook here, because you really have to go searching for them. But it's really good. It just runs on a 2d6. It's a very sleek, very easy system to run. Combat's quite dynamic and interesting. And it's really focused on a lot of story and things like that, and including the unique character generation system, which really it's not meant to be done before the game starts, like a session 0 sort of thing. Character creation is a mini game that's supposed to be included in the game itself, because that's where you combine your characters' backstories and you influence the world that you're in, as we saw in the game last night. Hey, thanks, Axe Poison. Page 68 of the Dungeon Master Guide, Mystara is briefly mentioned. Is it now? Excuse me. There it is. On Mystara, a heroic fantasy world born out of the earliest editions of the D&D game, diverse cultures, savage monsters, and warring empires collide. The world is further shaped by the meddling of the immortals, former adventurers raised to nearly divine status. So there you go. We need Mystara. We wants it. Justice. The For Great Justice actually refers to a post on Twitter from Jordan, the PH is silent, and me reposting it this morning, which I suggest you go and read, because it has something to do with YubTub and exactly how shitty YubTub has been. I won't talk about it on YubTub, because Google is watching. We needs it. Yeah, I'd be okay with a Mirrodin setting book for D&D. Hungry for the cheese. I also have some extremely dangerous, extremely spicy soy strips from China, which I'm going to take a bite of. Any advice when fighting mind flayers? I mean, from a dungeon master's perspective or a player's perspective? From a player's perspective, you want to stay out of reach. You want to hit them with ranged attacks. Stay out of their psionic range. Hey, Justin. if you live on Mystara and it rains, does your Mystara run? Sure. Soy strips, yeah. They're extremely spicy. It cannot be destroyed, William. The shard of ultimate evil that spawned the abyss cannot be destroyed. Can you recommend any books for coding for the Neverwinter Nights 2 toolset? No, it's been a very, very long time since I've done anything like that. Soy jerky, yeah. All hail, YubTub. Yes, Mystara did have the audio CDs. You are correct. Robert Wilson? What on earth? Is that actual dollars? Did you just give me $100? I missed several streams. So, lightning round go. I remember when China made cheese illegal. I think the Q said that they evolved from a race of individuals. I've read the... I think the Darakul are the golden children. And finally, AJ's brony status is canon. What? My brony... What? Okay, I've watched My Little Pony in the past as part of a group that we're playing EVE Online. I smoked, but I didn't inhale the broniness. Thank you very much, man. China-made cheese illegal? Really? Really? How would you do that? The Q from Star Trek? Evolved from a race of individuals. Well, I suppose so. But then again, the Q can go back and forth in time. So that's one of those interesting situations where if you can go back in time and recreate your race from scratch before your race ever existed, and then wipe out the planet that spawned your race in the first place, then you essentially are the architects of your own creation, which is an entirely possible thing that's happened many times with different races in D&D. So the Mind Flayers are one of those races where it's possible that they went back in time and created themselves. So they would have originated from tadpoles and neolithids, and perhaps the neolithids evolved into some form of monstrous psychic worm empire, and then they figured out that they could create these elder brains and vassals that they would install into people and change them into mind flayers, the Illithids, and then those mind flayers and the elder brains figured, oh, why don't we go back in time and make this the default state of our race because it's the most effective and it would have benefited us in the early struggles of our species. So let's avoid all that and go back and dominate the universe like we should. So timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. Can the crystal be removed? Yes. Well, it got brought over to the prime material plane, the material universe of Dungeons and Dragons through the Far Realm. So, in theory, it can go back through the Far Realm to somewhere else. Of course, doing so would be extremely difficult because going through the Far Realm would drive whoever did it insane. Don't eat the Chinese soy. It's too late. It's just a temporary hot, but it gives me it cools me down because it's actually a hot summer's day here. Detoxify from the pony. Oh, you're talking about the soy curd being My Little Pony. Good grief, people. Yeah, if the world keeps going the way we are, we're going to be eating nothing but squid and soy. That'll be it. Everybody be munching edamame. It's just a plant, man. It's just a plant. The war on cheese has been an abject failure, yeah. Being from New Zealand, I can attest to that. We export a lot of cheese. New Zealand mozzarella is going to hopefully dominate the Chinese pizza market. If you recreate yourself, does that mean that the first you is gone? Yes. Sounds like June. It does sound like June. Actually, the Traveller game that we were playing last night was a lot like June. Dragon Tail, the major news from Dungeons and Dragons at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that they've just officially acquired Took Games. So they had licensed Took to produce a D&D game, and they liked what Took was doing so much that they have acquired the company. It's a Canadian company, and that means that the work that I did for Took Games will be official D&D content. And I can't wait to tell you all about it, but I can't right now, obviously. Wow, it's really actually difficult to get to immortal status by the book if you're playing D&D Basic, so I'm impressed that you got one of your characters there. What would a dragon see as a greater threat, a Dracolich or a Brainstealer dragon? Well, dragons have got an interesting relationship because they know that Dracoliches are not exactly the same as regular liches, humanoid liches. Brainstealer dragons are terrifying to anyone, I think. So I think probably the Brainstealer dragon because the brain stealer dragons are working for an empire. They're not. Dracoliches are generally individuals, if you see what I mean. That's a good theory, William. Neolithids are actually still in charge. Is there a shard of ultimate good? No. No. Not officially. Hey, but your game, your rules. I'd love to see a shard of ultimate good, actually. What would that look like? Pure diamond? Oh, yeah, like the dark crystal. When they reunite the shard with the dark crystal and turns into this beacon of light. That's what I imagine a shard of ultimate good would look like. Right, yeah. Well, the tolerance for lactose, we can thank Genghis Khan for that. That was what, if I can get a little bit historical and biological at the same time, the reason why the horde of the Mongols did so well was they were mobile because they could eat cheese. They could tolerate the lactose. They had the enzymes, the gene that coded for the enzyme that allowed them to digest cheese. So they didn't have to have a complicated supply back chain following their army around like the Chinese forces did. And they could just run with their horses rampant across the landscape and outmaneuver the larger force of the Chinese Empire. And thanks to Genghis Khan's mobility and spread, that enzyme has spread and spread and spread. You were referring to detoxifying from My Little Pony, right? Oh, I see. Do Dracoliches need souls for their phylactery? I think so. Most liches, that's one of the requirements of it. That's kind of what makes liches so evil, really. Because if you remove that, then you remove a major weakness of the lich when you think about it. The fact that they can't just hold themselves up in a tomb and wall themselves off for centuries and centuries. They actually do need to get victims. So there's that. That would be a good module. So if there was such a thing as a shard of ultimate good, and somehow it was acquired and brought into proximity, I don't know how, with the shard of ultimate evil, what would happen? Would it explode, nullify, and destroy the progress of the Abyss itself? One of the problems with getting to the Shard of Ultimate Evil is that the layers of the Abyss that you have to get through to get there are extremely difficult to survive. One of them is the void, the shredding void, where you fall for so long that your skin actually flays off your body. Your flesh flays off your bones. The Shard of Ultimate Neutrality, it's just a rock. It does nothing. I have seen some Blizzard cinematics, yes, but as we know, I am boycotting Blizzard. So I will not talk about them or support their games. What sort of glues do I use for... I have quite a collection of glues. So it depends on what you're gluing, obviously. Every glue has its purpose. I'd say one of the most versatile glues is cyanoacrylate, or super glue, or crazy glue, or gorilla glue. You use that for a lot of different things. One of the problems I've had with like 3D printing, the PLA plastic, is super glue is quite good for that if you got the two surfaces very closely matched to each other. But sometimes it's a lot of work to get the pieces so finely tooled that they slot together perfectly. What I am trying out is 3D printing armatures and then using green stuff to add details over top of it. So that instead of using tinfoil, which I normally use to form the flexible armatures for making miniatures, I'm trying to use the PLA plastic instead, so I can get some really complicated thin shapes that have got quite a bit of structural strength. boycott without explanation. Oh, well, where have you been? So what happened was Wizards of the Coast was running a big international competition for some esports gaming thing. A guy won, and then he made a political comment about the Hong Kong situation, and Wizards of the Coast immediately banned him for a year, took away all of his prize earnings, and essentially just threw him out of the competition. And that was simply because China has a stake in the company, and a large chunk of Blizzard's profits come from the Asian market, the Chinese market. And so China exercised its financial clout to politically silence its detractors on an international level. And basically everyone from countries where we cherish our freedom of speech said, no, that's not okay. You can't cross the streams like you can't impose your communist censorship on people who live in a free country. That's not okay. And I'm quite proud of the gaming community and the consumer market in general for turning around and shutting down and severely hurting Blizzard for doing this, because the only way we would get their attention is to say, okay, if you want to protect your 40% profit share from, or whatever it is, maybe it's even 70% profit share from China by kowtowing to this regime, we are going to remove all of the profit that you're getting from these Western countries. And not only that, but the support. Because unless the Western countries are promoting the coolness of this thing, the Chinese market is not going to be interested in it, I think, in a way. That's just my personal take on it. But I think that if everybody realizes that banding together financially and withdrawing our support, even from something that we love. I mean, I was heavily invested in playing World of Warcraft. I was playing it every day. If we remove our investment to something that, if we make a personal sacrifice, not just financially, but also for something that we enjoy, because we're protecting our freedom of speech and stopping the encroachment of an evil empire, then we've got to do it. We've got to do it. And even if I don't feel that passionately strongly about the political message that was said, I feel very politically passionate about freedom of speech and protection of our way of life. And saying to these companies, look, it's fine that you operate in an international market and you pay attention to the individual countries where certain things have to be tailor-made for their sensibilities, cultural sensitivity on a global stage. That makes absolute sense, sure. But don't cross the streams and silence somebody because one of those countries is using their financial clout as leverage to blackmail you. So that's why I'm boycotting Blizzard. Who cares? The games are dead in any case. Well, it's interesting because Diablo is producing Diablo 4 is coming out. I just watched the trailer the other day. See, you can't help but promote the things. So, and BlizzCon obviously. So one of the things they've done is I think they've stopped all Q&As, live Q&As from BlizzCon. So they're aware that this is going on, and that's another form of censorship. It's like, oh well, we think there's going to be a bit of public backlash, and we want to get in front of the message, and the message, of course, is rightful protest of free speech. So have they learned anything? I don't think they have. I honestly don't think they have. They don't see. They've lost sight of the line that was very clearly in the sand of, you do not cross over this into the freedom of speech in countries where you are free to protest. You don't do it. One of the things I really liked was them turning one of the characters from Overwatch into the symbol of the Hong Kong protest. That's brilliant. That's trolling on that's next level trolling. Oh, death cheese. Yes, back to the cheese. Back to D&D. Enough of this. Very important lesson on where your power actually lies. Yeah, 003 sucked. I'm sorry. So the Abyss is a living thing, kind of. It's the collected psyche of all the demons that are spawning. Like when a demon gets killed on the prime material plane, it goes back to the Abyss and respawns. It spends a time churning around in the gestalt of the Abyss, this energy of the Abyss. Void dragons and time dragons, yes, they're coming up. Actually, I've got a little notebook here, a more compact notebook. So I'm starting the list from scratch, and it's my literal to-do list. Time dragon, void dragon. So let's see, we've just done the Sledge, the Astral Dreadnought. Next on my list is the Star Spawn, the Inevitables, the False Hydra, finally, Athos, Avandra, the Bannerloths, Time Dragon, and Void Dragon. There we go. We'll see if I can get those out in a reasonable order, but I don't have to remind you that this is my channel and I do what I want. So that may change, but that's my list of to-dos. What city in Faerun is the most tolerant of magic users? Ooh, depends really. If you just show up and start shooting magic off willy-nilly without any sort of association with anybody, then it's going to be problematic wherever you go. But Cormyr and Thay, obviously. Kalimshan is very tolerant of magic, and there's the Host Tower of the Arcane in Luskan, but the wizards there are pretty mean. Yeah, lots of different places, really. Yeah, so I'll be using the Void Dragons from the Creature Codex from Kobold Press, because those are, I think, the most relatable to people these days. I might mention some of the abilities that Void Dragons had in previous incarnations, but a lot of these more fringe dragons were just Dragon Magazine articles, and they were quite often, I don't think, very well fleshed out, and they weren't supported. Like, they vary a lot between every time they show up. Like the Purple Dragon, for instance, is very variable. In one regard, it's like an underground dragon. In the other regard, it's just a cross between a red and a blue dragon. So making a video about purple dragons was going to run into people who disagreed. Guaranteed, 100%. Can a Cybriex make a spelljamming engine out of demons? Absolutely, why not? That sounds awesome. Who's the most mundane god that you know of, like a god of cooking? Actually, Avandra is pretty mundane. God of halflings, which is one of the halfling gods. A god of home and hearth, essentially. Yeah. Who else? Torm and Helm. Gods of protection and justice, you know, they're pretty ho-hum. Is there a god of humans as a race? No, they kind of avoid that. Like, generally speaking, the gods that you see most often associated with humans are sun gods. So, a Mornator or Lathander or Pelor. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of humans who worship Bahamut or Moradin as well. See, Moradin is not just a dwarven god. I mean, he is the patron of the dwarves, but Moradin has principles that humans also support. I don't know if there's ever a case of Moradin showing up to support just humans. He's very much a dwarven god. But he'll grant power to human clerics who worship him. This dragon, this is Greed Dragon. This is actually the gargantuan or the colossal red dragon. So this is an ancient red dragon, and I don't know if they're very hard to come by. This is worth about $600 or so, I think, these days. I acquired this from Dungeon Master Johnny when he sold his entire collection of miniatures when he was getting out of D&D at one point, which I'm sure he regrets, but it's got a very good home. This is the blue dragon. Yeah. The God Emperor of Mankind, you heretic. Well, true. Okay, so I mean, we don't know. The God Emperor could in fact be wandering around at the moment. As we know, he was the incarnated souls of all magic-using druids and wizards of the earth. Who saved everyone from destruction. Annoya. Or who is it? There's like Pan or something, the god of small animals that squeak when they die. Would you consider doing the light dragon for Creature Codex? Yeah, maybe. Once you crack that book and start producing videos about them, you got to go whole hog, honestly. I mean, I have an unending stream of monsters that I can make lore videos about. Could you hold a domain or portfolio if you ain't a god? What sort of being would? Clerics, like warlocks. I don't know, honestly. Because they're very much wrapped up in the whole concept of divinity. I suppose if you're a very powerful warlock of an entity like, say you're a warlock of Oboxob, you'd have a domain aspect of alienness, perhaps, or eldritch horror, that sort of thing, or space, or darkness, something like that. So it would be very similar to a domain. But that's really just where you run into the problem of mechanics versus lore and story. Like, just because it's mechanically in the game doesn't mean it has to have a corresponding support in the lore. Some things are just mechanics because they're gameplay. So sometimes you run into a question which is sometimes you run into a question that is just, you've got to cross over the fourth wall and say that's the way the designers of the game wanted it. Phone. Oh, hi Fiona. Bye Fiona. How's the orchard going? Well, the oranges are in full blossom. There's flowers everywhere. It's springtime. The goldfish are mating. It's fantastic. Before I start the stream, what I do is I go out with a cup of coffee and I sit outside over by the fish pond and just breathe and absorb the serenity of my surroundings. It's beautiful this time of year. Hey, thanks Kickass Duke. Looking for a map making software and really like how Campaign Cartographer 3 looks, but it's pricey. Have you used it and think it's worth the coin, or do you have any other recommendations? I want a world map and a good one, and good city maps. No, I haven't used Campaign Cartographer 3. Most of the people over time that I have known who have bought Campaign Cartographer have used it for a while, and then I just don't see them using it again. So at some point they lose favor with it, or it becomes too unwieldy or something like that. they love it for a short time, and then they stop using it for the convenience of just using maps and things that they find on the internet. Because invariably, people who use Campaign Cartographer upload their videos to their pictures to Pinterest or Tumblr or something like that, and people just grab them and use them for convenience. So there is heaps and heaps and heaps of map stuff out there that you can use for free. So if you want to use that sort of stuff, then Campaign Cartographer is one of the best that you can get. But yeah, it is a commercial grade product. The other option you can have is actually pay an artist to do it for you. Just a thought. That way you're supporting an artist and you're not committing yourself to the price of software which you may not actually use. But definitely go to YouTube and things like that and look for people tutorials and walkthroughs and stuff like that of software, because if software doesn't have some sort of tutorial or walkthrough or somebody using it on YouTube, I generally don't buy it. Would a planet-sized artifice prison be big and powerful enough to hold a Lord of Ruin? Yes, I think so. Watching fish spawn is wild. I don't see a lot of it. I just see them chasing around the side of the pond. I'm like sitting 15 feet back and watching the water go boop as they're racing around. It's just the activity. Yeah, Incarnate is pretty good for world maps as well. There was a free version of it when it was in beta, and now I think or beta, and now you pay for it, I think. But it's really good. Oh, by the lamp there, yeah, there's a beholder over there by the lamp. That's one of the beholders that I built. That was actually I was building that as practice for the one that I built for DM Scotty. And DM Scotty made a video of that beholder that I sent him. Any plans on a Bacob video? Yeah, maybe. I generally don't do a lot of Greyhawk stuff because, believe it or not, Greyhawk is not many people, like the people who do play Greyhawk as a setting quite like it. There's a lot of very homebrewed Greyhawk stuff because the setting really is great for homebrew sort of stuff. But the body of people who are playing it are very vocal about it, but it's actually a very small portion of the people who are playing settings in general. Yeah, from my experience. I mean, just in the audience that I have of 100,000 odd people who are talking to me all the time. Do you currently have plans to continue your Ecology of the Gods, Planescape, Spelljammer stuff, or any Planes of the Multiverse? Yeah, so there's several things which are weighing on my conscience. One of them is the second Neverwinter, the history of, the history of the Netherall Empire video. Because the second stage video of that was where I was going to be talking about the period where they were making all the spells. So where do the spells that people use in the D&D game come from? Who invented them? What happened to those people? How recent have these spells been around in the Forgotten Realms? But those videos are not, those history of Faerun videos are not particularly popular on my channel. They just aren't. So I'm less inclined. I mean, I'm making videos about monster lore is much more popular, and the ones where I talk about big forces like Lords of Evil and dragons and demons and things like that are generally more popular on my channel. So I'm encouraged by feedback from you to do those. Kassiri does make my head hurt too. Yes, it's true. Any opinion on the new Unearthed Arcana coming out? Generally speaking, I like to wait and see what becomes official, for fear that if I lend my support to something, it may actually influence it becoming official canon somehow. I don't know. I don't want to contribute to clogging up an otherwise streamlined system with too many options. Hello 3.5. No, that's a finished beholder. It's a bit dusty over in the corner there. So the idea is that it's floating, just supported by one or two of its eye stalks, which has actually got a paper clip, which the wire is holding the entire, supporting the entire miniature. So it gives them that hovering sort of look. Yeah, but it's just fairly simple. One of the things that I do that really makes the eyes stand out is I apply a dab of epoxy resin, clear epoxy glue, right onto the iris and pupil, and it gives it a lensed reflective look that makes it look very realistic, whilst leaving the whites of the eye matte, so not shiny. And that's my secret to making very realistic looking eyes. And on a beholder, you want the eyes to stand out, obviously. Can you get a video on epic magic? So if I do another Netherall video, there may actually be some epic magic included in there. Like the History of the Netherall Empire Part 1 has got some of those epic magic spells in there. Good grief, Tumblr is messaging me? I didn't even know Tumblr still works. Is Tumblr still around? Is Tumblr a thing? Do people still use Tumblr? Who is the biggest troll / shitlord in the D&D multiverse? Let's see. Groomsh is one of those gods that nobody messes with. Like when Groomsh is angry, other gods just get out of the way. He's one of the more dominant of the Forgotten Realms gods. So Cyric and like the Dark Three are new gods on the scene. So any mortal who has ascended to godhood tends to upset the apple cart quite a bit. I mean, Cyric killed a goddess of magic, so that's trolling on a whole new level. Yes, devils do care about the laws of mortals. Law is built into them. They can't be not lawful. Yeah, monster vids are generally accessible to people who don't play a lot of D&D. So that's one of the things that people who do play D&D and watch my channel don't realise, is that a lot of people who watch my channel are not interested in the mechanics of the game whatsoever because they've never played D&D. They just like me talking about monsters. Greyhawk had rune magic. Yeah, I particularly like rune magic. I'm really, really looking forward to Kobold Press's Deep Magic series, because it vastly expands on magic. Kind of in the way that Matt Colville's Strongholds and Followers and Kingdoms and Warfare expands on the development of politics and character development in the game world. The Deep Magic expands on magic in the D&D 5th edition setting vastly, so it gives you whole aspects of magic that you can base an entire character concept around. Like when your wizard is rolling their arcana check because they're investigating a dwarven ruins, the type of magic that the dwarves use is different from the type of magic that orcs use, or giants use, or elves use. Vastly different from the magic that elves use. When a wizard's investigating an ancient elven tomb and it comes across some writing in Draconic and they say, whoa, everybody back up, this may be demonic. Like these gold elves got up to some seriously bad shit back in the day, and we may be uncovering something that they've just left behind because they never thought somebody would be stupid enough to come down here. Case in point was some very, very bad elven mamma-jammers who were basically demon elven crossbreeds, were entombed below a massive fortress that no elf ever thought would fall, but it did, and they got loose. Hey, Juju Bear. Oh, the customer service trouble. So yeah, I was setting up a treadmill that I bought from. It's an Australian company that has a New Zealand branch office. And generally speaking, customer service from those sort of companies is typically bad. But in this case, they sent me a treadmill because I'm trying to get fit. So I've got a home gym which I've set up in my garage, and I bought a treadmill because I wanted to do some jogging. And I set it up, took it out of the box. It was supposed to be basically you unfold the thing and it's ready to go. You just peel off the sticky tape and plug her in. So I plugged it into the wall, switched on the wall switch, and the motor went bang and just went completely dead. So it completely burnt out the motor. Whatever electronics was in there was completely not earthed at all. So highly dangerous. That's the sort of fault where the thing catches on fire and burns your house down, because it goes bang and you go and run off and it catches fire. So yeah, not happy, and clearly covered by New Zealand consumer law that needs to be replaced or repaired or replaced or refunded immediately. It's the law, regardless of whether it's got a warranty or a guarantee or anything. So that's one thing about living in New Zealand that's quite convenient. So I contacted the company immediately. They asked me to take a photo of it to show the damage. It's like, it's okay. So I took a photo. They sent it to their accounts department. They said that they're sending me a new running board for it, and could I install it myself, or was there a technician in the area? And I said, well, I followed the instructions and put together your home gym okay, which took some doing. It took me an entire day to put that together. Running those cables and things, using those diagrams, difficult. And I said, well, I'll give it a go, but if I need to call in a technician, you're getting the bill for that, because that's part of the law too, honestly. It's like, oh, well, I sent you this thing. It's broken. You can get it fixed. And I was like, well, you're going to pay for that, because I bought something that's supposed to work. Hey, thanks, Colby. What do you think about future technologies in the future of D&D, like virtual reality, 3D printing, holograms, and more? I'm glad you asked. So at the moment, I have backed the Tilt 5 AR, so augmented reality glasses. So the system uses a fold-out board which has got a reflective material that bounces photons right back into the glasses. So what the glasses do is you're looking through them, so you can see everything around you as per normal. And then when you look down at the board, it's projecting a light image and bouncing it right back and highlighting on your retina these graphics which only you can see, or people who are wearing the goggles can see around the table. So and it's a 3D image. So you can run a D&D game just like it's a holographic image that's right in front of you, and it's interactive with cards and things like that the system is reading. So when you put down a token, it's like a little barcode-y type thing. You put the token down on the board, it reads it, the system then creates a dragon, an animated dragon, which is and then you use the little wand thingy and you point at the dragon, it breathes fire over a 15-foot cone, and it's amazing. It's so good. This is like, it's not even it's not even like VR glasses and things like that, like, where you basically put a cell phone in the front of your thing, and you're wearing this big clunky thing on your face, and you can't see anything around you. That's inconvenient, and it's also a little bit dangerous. I've seen numerous people trip over things and go, ah, and like fall over backwards and hurt themselves. This, you can see what's going on around you. It's very lightweight. It's only 85 grams. And it's a tool. It's a platform, right? So that's one of the things that people need to understand. It's a console, like a PlayStation, like a Xbox. It's a brand new type of console, and because it works and it's engineered with its own chipsets and things like that, and it most of the processing load is taken up by the glasses themselves, so it's not so reliant on a high-end computer to run it for you. So it can run on a laptop and things like that. It will run very well and smoothly over online connections, so people distant from each other can have a tabletop that they're running at the time with the DM doing invisible things in the background, then selecting what is visible to the players. The players have got their own bespoke characters that are on the table. The DM is doing ground effects and stuff, so he goes, okay, show my hand. I run my hand across the surface of this dungeon, and it fills up with roiling green smoke, which is filling up this area that the characters are in, because somebody's just cast a clouds kill spell. So the people sitting around the table talking to the person over Discord or whatever, He says, okay, this happens, and then you see this hand appear and go woof, and the magical hand of the dungeon master fills up this dungeon in front of you with roiling toxic smoke, and you go, ah! And you get your wand, and when your turn comes around, it activates, and you go, okay, I'm moving my character there, and they go, ah! And they run off. So it provides an entirely virtual experience that's the match of any sort of 3D terrain that you could print, any sort of cheap terrain that you can make out of cardboard, etc. And this entry-level system, which I've backed and supported on Kickstarter, is something they'll be showing you when it arrives, and I can actually showcase it and show how it works. Not only that, but it's already supported by Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro. All these different companies have jumped on board and are developing software for it right now, because this is the next big thing. And this is exactly what people like me and others have predicted will come for Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons is perfectly suited for that sort of thing. In Star Wars, the original Star Wars, where on the Millennium Falcon they're playing with the virtual reality, it's got little Rancor and stuff, and C-3PO is playing against the Wookiee, and Han Solo says, be careful, because if he loses, Chewbacca will rip your arm off. And he's like, oh no, that's right, it was R2-D2. And then C-3PO says, I suggest you let the Wookiee win. That developer who made the graphics for that program is one of the people who is involved and developing software for Tilt 5. So that gives you some idea of just how awesome it's going to be. Hank, thank you, Hoovgoon. Sorry I missed that. I think it's the Copper Dragon that likes company anyway. Do you think that a gregarious dragon would allow a small clan of gnomes to sort of live in the opening of his cave, carving homes into its walls? Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Particularly gnomes, yeah. It's wizard's chess. Yeah, exactly. If you go to my community tab and scroll down, you'll see a message there where a link directly back to the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter has currently ended, so the funding period is over. But I have backed that, and hopefully I'll be seeing those arriving soon. And that, we're getting pretty close to the end of the stream, actually, folks. What conversation did I walk into? Yeah, so this is, it's like, it's great to see something that you sort of predicted would happen in the industry coming real before your very eyes. Like, it's great to know that this was being developed. And not only that, but it's the passion project of a woman who is very skilled in electronics and things like that. So she's developed the chipset and things like that, and she's really good at it. And she's been through the trials and tribulations of Silicon Valley, but she's finally made it out the other side, and it's going to be fantastic. Is there a giveaway today? No, there's no giveaway today. I was hoping that there was going to be another D20 giveaway for the big metal D20s, but as soon as there is, I'll let you know. Oh, there is a D&D WoW giveaway on Facebook and Instagram at the moment, actually, if you want to go and check that out. So if you go and look for D&D WoW's Instagram or the messages on Facebook, all you have to do is like the thing, subscribe to them, and friend them, and put a comment down below of what you prefer in your metal dice for your game, whatever your game system is, and then you're in the draw to win a free set of dice. And about, I think, 2 people are getting free sets of dice, 1 person from Facebook and 1 person from Instagram. So if you enter in both Facebook and Instagram, you double your chances. And 10 people are getting free shipping on anything that they buy from D&D WoW. Since I backed Tilt 5 too, do you think there's a chance I could join a game you host in the future? Absolutely, Kick-Ass Duke. Yes, absolutely. I'll be itching to try that out with you. And not only that, but I think it's a 3-set group, so I've got 3 sets of glasses, so I'll have friends in New Zealand who will be able to play as well. Do you think D&D should leave the Sword Coast, and if so, where to? I think Cormier could do with a bit of development as well as the Far East. So we've been down to Chult, don't forget. We've been to Chult. I'd like to see the Lands of Intrigue get a look in, the Alquidem setting. And the Central Heartlands, particularly the Sea of Fallen Stars, because the Sea of Fallen Stars was traditionally the starting point. Cormyr and the Sea of Fallen Stars was the starting point of every D&D campaign. That used to be the Sword Coast of D&D. That used to be the most popular place. That's where Ed Greenwood, the Dales and Cormyr, was where he started all of his stories and campaigns. So it's moved away from there to the Sword Coast because the Sword Coast was the wild frontier. It was the wild west of D&D. But now the Sword Coast is pretty well trodden, I think, and pretty well covered, but we need to branch out and perhaps revisit some of the classic areas of Dungeons & Dragons that establish the feel of the Forgotten Realms setting. Why doesn't the shard just burrow through the multiverse and come out the other side? Also, does the abyss affect far realm planes as well? No, I don't think so. The far realm is separate from the multiverse in a way. It's the outside. That's the definition of it. It's the outside of the multiverse. It's where everything breaks down and you get into Crazy Town. Whereas the Shard of Ultimate Evil is burrowing through into alternate dimensions and making them part of, connecting them to the multiverse in a way. So it's making a passageway. It's like it burrows through and absorbs, it metastasizes. So it's connecting things that should not be connected. That's kind of what the Abyss is doing. It breaks them down, digests them. What's that question, Roddy? What would be the D&D version of Giargas, like Tharizdun? I don't know who Giargas is. Yeah, VR is cool and AR is also cool. So AR, assisted reality, is different because you're looking at the real world around you. This is like the whole thing with the Pokemon Go, for instance. That's AR, that's assisted reality. So you look through your camera and you're looking at the scene you're looking at, but it's got a character superimposed on it. AR is that. So you're looking through glasses and you'll be able to see the Pokemon, you know. And you get your little wand and you can interact with them. Pew, pew. Yeah, the Abyss is a corrupted elemental force. Do you think that going east might run into controversy nowadays? People might get offended with the portrayal of Eastern themes, lands, and corporations typically bend over backwards for PR. Well, look, people who can't separate fantasy from reality are always going to be a problem. The people who must put allegory on things, like people who overanalyze Tolkien's view of the forgotten Middle Earth and say it's allegory for the real world and stuff. Obviously, every creator is going to borrow from the real world mythology, politics, and things like that to flesh out their stories. But that doesn't mean they're necessarily automatically commenting on reality. Like genies, dragons, trolls, goblins, these things don't exist, you know. So no, they're not allegory for anything. And people who like say, oh, you know, orcs are just allegories for minorities or whatever. It's like, really? Really? That's more to do with what you think than what the game is actually about. Don't put that on me. That's not what I think when I think of dwarves and trolls and orcs and goblins and hobgoblins and spectres and spooks and goblins and greasy oozes and things like that. Oh, that reminds me. So there's various creatures that were created over on the Discord channel for like a monthly in-house competition. Just like, you know, a Caduce sort of thing. And they produced a fantastic bevy of monsters that I would really love, with their permission, to make ecology videos about. Particularly like the Moss Wasp was one I was very impressed with. There's a stained glass golem, which is pretty fantastic. There's all sorts of a pudding dragon, which is not what you think, and very, very cool. So I'd love to, with your guys' permission, I'd love to make ecology videos about those, because they're fantastic work, honestly. Yeah, the Netflix movie Bright, exactly. Like, do you think they had any interaction with the Shadowrun universe? Which, I mean, if you're going to spend big bucks and make a movie like that, for God's sakes, why wouldn't you make a Shadowrun movie? Honestly, Ghidorah? I don't know. Gyargas from Godzilla? Yeah, the SCP universe, multiverse. Yeah, that animated series that somebody posted on the Discord about the SCP multiverse, and the guy who keeps reincarnating, like the guy with immortality who keeps regenerating every time he dies. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. I hope they make more. Jordan and Mr. X as guest stars. And me. Nice. I like it. Oof, that's pretty nasty, Joshua, being trapped in Flatland. I mean, we are in Flatland ourselves. There's more dimensions to the multiverse, to the universe that we're living in right now. I mean, really, we're in a Flatland ourselves. We're in limited dimensions. There are more dimensions than we currently are aware of around us and going on all the time. So we are in Flatland by the comparison, from the perspective of other beings that live in the multiverse that we live in right now. There are higher powers than us, I assure you. Just like ants are not aware of what a motor car is or where it comes from. There are much more complicated things going on in the universe right now than we're aware of. And we will never be particularly aware of them. And we've got boundaries of what we can do, what we can achieve. There's only so far that humanity can ever explore into the universe, because it's just so vast that by the time we get there, we will no longer be humans. Just accept it. We have limitations. That being said, though, I don't find this depressing at all. We have a place. We have a function. Well, it's every month, William. So we're in a new Discord contest time frame now. So you've got an entire month to make a monster and submit it. I think we need to make that more official somehow. So I'll create a board specifically for it. We'll call it the Monster Mash, monthly Monster Mash. The Mighty Glue Stick monthly Monster Mash. Sounds good. Is the universe flat and infinite, or is it a bubble thing or a ring? The universe is basically a singularity that is becoming more complex on the inside, and what we perceive of as space is actually the complexity of energy moving through a system. Space doesn't actually exist. That's why the expansion of the universe is not governed by any limitations, whereas the speed of light through a vacuum is. Space isn't real. Neither is time. Time is a surface that's moving through. So we're an energy wave that is moving through a structure of Higgs bosons that are extruded through the inside of the singularity. So we've never actually expanded. That's why when particles become paired, it doesn't matter what the intervening distance is between them, they still interact at the same time, simultaneously, no matter the distance, because distance isn't real. On that note, it's time to go. It's been a fantastic stream, everyone. I will see you next weekend. I think I might actually do a a Sunday. If you're over in the States, it'll be a Sunday stream, so a day later, because I've had some people who say, I always miss the streams because I'm working on a Saturday. So we'll do a Sunday stream. For those of you over in the Southern Hemisphere, that'll be a Monday stream. And I'll see you then. Look forward to another couple of videos this week. And maybe something exclusive for the patrons as well. Thank you, patrons, for a fantastic month of support. Very much appreciated. And I will catch you all later.